Hello. So this is the second week of my speech practice, and maybe it's not. Well, I have to first specify that I think I wasn't using it, but I would be clear again that the voice is not using any. The voice is not going through any uh, earbuds. So even though I was wearing this earbuds last week, I don't think it was turned on. So I will keep it this way onwards. So I'm not gonna have to. Well, it's gonna be clear, like it's gonna be in this room, and see how the voice echoes. Maybe it's not fair because right now it's 11:30 or almost 12, and I have gone out. I've been having a talk with my parents over breakfast, and that might have warmed up my throat and stomach and lung quite a bit, so my voice might come off much clearer. But maybe if you focus on the pronunciation or mumbling part, then maybe it works still. But it's best to be right after waking up. And it's also true that I spent about an hour, a little short of an hour, little short of an hour practicing voice speaking out loud this book this morning. So maybe it helps. My voice might sound much better than before. But still, like when I'm talking now, this articulation still drains my energy. Still using up a lot of mental processing power when I talk. So that's still need practice. It has to come naturally, more and more naturally. But let's see. So I'm gonna go back to the same passage. I might feel another one again to keep the content fresh, so that every time I do reading, it will be that kind of fresh new text that I have to read that might not be as easy to come off the first time as the second time. So let's see how it comes off. But like for now, I will practice the same passage as last week. So this again, Beyond Good and Evil, What is Noble, chapter 8, 6 or 9. Let's say, every elevation of the type man has hitherto been the work of an aristocracy society, and so it will always be a society believing in a long scale of gradations of rank and differences of worth among human beings, and requiring slavery in some form or another, some form, some form or other, some form or other, some form or other, without the pathos of distance, such as grows out of the incarnated difference of classes, out of the constant outlooking and downlooking of the rules cast on subordinates and instruments, and out of their equally constant practice of obeying and commanding, of keeping down and keeping at the distance, that other more mysterious pathos could never have arisen. The longing for an ever new widening of distance within the soul itself, the formation of ever lighter, ever higher, rarer, farther, more extended, more comprehensive states. In short, just the elevation of the type man, the continued self-surmounting of man, to use a moral formula in a supermoral sense. To be sure, one must not uh, one must not resign oneself to any humanitarian illusions about the history of the origin of an aristocratic society. That is to say, of the preliminary condition for the elevation of the type man. The truth is hard. Let us acknowledge unprejudicedly, 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 how every higher civilization hitherto has originated. Man with a small, man with a still natural nature, barbarians in every terrible sense of the word, men of prey, still in possession of unbroken strength of will and desire for power, threw themselves upon weaker, more moral, more peaceful race. Perhaps trading or cattle rearing communities, or upon old mellow civilization in which the final vital force for vital force was flickering out in brilliant fireworks of wit and depravity. At the commencement, the noble caste was always the barbarian caste. Their superiority did not consist first of all in their physical, but in their psychical power. They were more complete men, which at every point also implies the same as more complete beasts. Corruption. As the indication that anarchy threatens to break out among the instincts, and that the foundation of the emotions called life is conversed, is something radically different according to the organization in which it manifests itself. When, for instance, an aristocracy like that of France at the beginning of the revolution flung away its flung away its privileges with sublime disgust and sacrificed itself to the excess of its moral sentiments, it was corruption. It was really only the closing act of the corruption which had existed for centuries, by virtue of which that aristocracy had abdicated step by step its its lordly prerogatives and lowered itself to a function of royalty. In the end, even to its decoration and parade dress, that the essential thing, however, in a good and healthy aristocracy is that it should not regard itself as the function either of the kingship or the commonwealth, but as the significance and highest justification thereof, that it should therefore accept with a good conscience the sacrifice of a legion a legion of individuals who for its sake must be suppressed and reduced to imperfect man, to slaves and instruments. Its fundamental belief must be precisely that society is not allowed to exist for its own sake, but only as a foundation and scaffolding by means of which a, a select class of being may be able to elevate themselves to their higher duties and in general to a higher existence, like those sun-seeking climbing plants in Java. They are called Sipo which encircle an oak so long and so often with their arms, until at last, high above it, but supported by it, they can unfold their tops in the open light and exhibit their happiness. To refrain from from injury, from violence, from violence, from exploitation, and put one's will on a par with that of others. This may result in a certain rough sense in good conduct among individuals when the necessary conditions are given, namely the actual similarity of the individuals in amount of force and degree of worth and their correlation degree of worth and their correlation with in one organization. As soon, however, as one wished to take this principle more generally and, if possible, even as the fundamental principle of society, it would immediately disclose what it really is, namely a will to the denial of life. A principle of dissolution and decay. Here one must think profoundly to the very basis and resist all sentimental weakness. Life itself is essentially appropriation, injury, conquest of the strange and weak, suppression and severity, obstruction of peculiar forms, incorporation, and at the least putting it mildest, exploitation. But why should one forever use precisely these words on which for ages a disparaging purpose has been stamped? Even the organization within which, as was previously supposed, the individuals treat each other as equal. It takes place in every healthy aristocracy, must itself, if it be a living and not a dying organization, do all that towards other bodies which the individuals within it refrain from doing to each other. It will have to be the incarnated will to power. It will endeavor to grow, to gain ground, attract to itself, and acquire ascendancy, not owing to any morality or immorality, but because it lives and because life is precisely will to power. On no point, however, is the ordinary consciousness of Europeans more unwilling to be corrected than on this matter. On this matter is the ordinary consciousness of Europeans more unwilling to be corrected than on this matter. People now rave everywhere, even under the guise of science, about coming conditions of society in which the exploitation character is to be absent. That sounds to my ears as if they promised to invent a mode of life which should refrain from all organic functions. Exploitation does not belong to a depraved or imperfect and primitive society. It belongs to the nature of the living being as a primary organic function. It is the consequence of the intrinsic will to power, which is precisely the will to life. Granting that as a theory, this is the novelty. As a reality, it is the fundamental fact of all history. Let us be so far honest towards ourselves. In a tour through the many finer and coarser moralities which have hitherto prevailed or still prevail on the earth, I found certain traits recurring regularly together and connected with one another until finally two primary types revealed themselves to me, and the radical distinction was brought to light. There is master morality and slave morality. I would at once add, however, that in all higher and mixed civilizations, there are also attempts at the reconciliation of the two moralities, but one finds still softer, soft, one finds still oftener the confusion and mutual misunderstanding of them. Indeed, sometimes their close just juxtaposition, even in the same man within one soul, within one soul. The distinction of moral values have either originated in a ruling caste, pleasantly conscious of being different from the ruled, or among the ruled class, the slave and dependents of all sorts. In the first case, when it is the rulers who determine the conception good, it is the exalted, proud disposition which is regarded as the distinguishing feature and that which determines the order of rank. The noble type of man separates from himself the beings in whom the opposite of this exalted, proud disposition displays itself. He despises them. Let it at once be noted that in this first kind of morality, the antithesis good and bad means practically the same as noble and despicable. Despicable. The antithesis good and evil is of different origin. The cowardly, the timid, the insignificant, and those thinking merely of narrow utility are despised. Moreover, also the distrustful with their constrained glances, the self-abasing, the dog-like kind of men who let themselves be abused, the mendicant flatterers, and above all the liars. It is the fundamental belief of all aristocrats that the common people are untruthful. We truthful ones, the nobility in ancient Greece called themselves. It is obvious that everywhere the designation of moral values were at first applied to man and were only de- derivatively and at a later period applied to actions. It is a gross mistake, therefore, when historians of morals start with questions like why have sympathetic actions been praised? The noble type of man regards himself as a determiner of values. He does not require to be approved of. He passes the judgment. What is injurious to me is injurious in itself. He knows that it is he himself only who confers honor on things. He is a creator of values. He honors whatever he recognizes in himself. Such morality equals self-glorification. In the foreground, there is the feeling of plenitude, of power which seeks to overflow the happiness of high tension, the consciousness of a wealth which would fain give and bestow. The noble man also helps the unfortunate, but not or scarcely out of pity, but rather from impulse generated by the superabundance of power. The noble man honors in himself the powerful one, him also who has power over himself, who knows how to speak and how to keep silence, who takes pleasure in subjecting himself to severity and hardness, and has reverence for all that is severe and hard. Wotan placed Warden placed a hard heart in my breast, says an old Scandinavian saga. It is thus rightly expressed from the soul of a proud Viking. Such a type of man is even proud of not being made for sympathy. Such a type of man is even proud of not being made for sympathy. The hero of the saga therefore adds the hero of the saga therefore adds warningly, he who has not a hard heart when young will never have one. The noble and brave who think thus are the farthest removed from the morality which sees precisely in sympathy or in acting for the good of others or in disinterest man. The characteristic of the moral, faith in oneself, pride in oneself, and radical enmity and irony towards selflessness, 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 selflessness towards selflessness belong as definitely to noble morality as do a careless scorn and precaution in presence of sympathy and a warm heart. It is the powerful who know how to honor. It is their art, their domain for invention, the profound reverence for age and for tradition. The profound reverence for age and for tradition, all law, all law, rest on this double reverence, the belief and prejudice in favor of ancestors and unfavorable to newcomers is typical in the morality of the powerful, and if reversely, men of modern ideas believe almost instinctively in progress and the future and are more and more lacking in respect for old age, the ignoble origin of these ideas has complacently betrayed itself nearby. The morality of the ruling class, however, is more especially foreign and irritating to present-day taste in the sternness of its principle that one has duties only to one's equals, that one may act towards beings of a lower rank, towards all that is foreign, just as seems good to one, or at the heart desires, and in any case beyond good and evil. It is here that sympathy and similar sentiments can have a place. The ability and obligation to exercise prolonged gratitude and prolonged revenge, both only within the circle of equals. Artfulness in retaliation, re, refinement of the idea in friendship, a certain necessity to have enemies as outlets for the emotions of envy, quarrelsomeness, arrogance, 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 as outlets of the emotions of envy, quarrelsomeness, arrogance, in fact, in order to be a good friend. All these are typical characteristics of the noble morality which as has been pointed out, is not the morality of modern ideas, and is therefore at present difficult to realize and also to unearth and disclose. It is otherwise was the second type of morality, slave morality, supposing that the abused, the oppressed, the suffering, the unemancipated, the weary, and those uncertain of themselves should moralize what will be the common element in their moral estimates. Probably a pessimistic suspicion with regard to the entire situation of man will find expression, perhaps a condemnation of man, together with his situation. The slave has an unfavorable eye for the virtues of the powerful. He has a skepticism and distrust, a refinement of distrust of everything good that is there honored. He would fain persuade himself that the very happiness there is not genuine. On the other hand, those qualities which serve to alleviate the existence of sufferers are brought into prominence and flooded with light. It is here that sympathy, the kind helping hand, the warm heart, patience, diligence, humility, and friendliness attain to honor. For here the for here these are the most useful qualities and almost the only means of supporting the burden of existence. Slave morality is essentially the morality of utility. Here is the seat of the origin of the famous antithesis good and evil. Power and dangerousness are assumed to reside in the evil, a certain dreadfulness, subtlety, and strength which do not admit of being despised. According to slave morality, therefore, the evil man arouses fear. According to master morality, it is precisely the good man who arouses fear and seeks to arouse it, while the bad man is regarded as the despicable being. The contrast attains its maximum when, in accordance with the logical consequences of slave morality, a shade of depreciation, it may be slight and well intentioned, at last attaches itself to the good man of this morality, because according to the servile mode of thought, the good man must in any case be the safe man. He is good natured, easily deceived, perhaps a little stupid. Bon homme. Everywhere that slave morality gains the ascendancy, language shows a tendency to approximate the significations of the words good and stupid. At last, fundamental difference, the desire for freedom, the instinct for happiness, and the refinement of the feeling of liberty belongs as necessarily to slave morals and morality as artifice and enthusiasm in reverence and devotion are the regular symptoms of an aristocratic mode of thinking and estimating. Hence, we can understand without further detail why love as a passion, it is our European specialty, must absolutely be of noble origin. It is well known. Its invention is due to the Provençal poet cavaliers, those brilliant, ingenious men of the guise, saber, to whom Europe owes so much and almost owes itself. Okay, so that was my 30 minutes of Beyond Good and Evil. Yeah, it's an interesting book as always. The slave morality and master morality, and I think it's talking about our psychological desire to be better than others, which is there present. It comes down to how you rate yourself. Like people always rate yourself as above average in driving, and probably that manifests in all kinds of aspects. Like everybody thinks they are good father or mother. Everybody thinks they are good employees. Everybody thinks they are smarter than they are. Um, I guess it comes down to like overconfidence part about what you don't know. You feel more confident, something like that. Uh, yeah, maybe it does come down to like you want to believe you're better than other groups. That must manifest in the white supremacy thinking too, coming from the white racial backgrounds. So I think that the way he describes it, that Nietzsche describes it, is like that's a will to power. The part I really liked, the description he liked, the desire for enemy within the nobles. That we need the enemy as outlets for the emotions of envy, quarrelsomeness, arrogance. In fact, in order to be a good friend, which is quite interesting because I can see it manifest in Japan dynamics or other East Asian countries such as South Korea or China. Before it was just a pity looking, like, oh, they feel sorry for this like World War II causing, so we are happy to pay more because they are poor. But now they're like almost, yeah, I'll say like equal or stronger, and it's actually like enemy relationship who stand on the uh, mutual ground, and I guess that's a good thing. Yeah. So like the alternative is not the friendship or friendly countries, but like a slave and master morality. It's like a pity uh, aspect. So I can see that with Americans and Canadian relationship. I'm not I'm not sure how it goes with Canada and UK relationship. Maybe just more like an ignorance or indifference. Yeah. Yeah. Just because we don't know that makes us friends, kind of. We have positive mentality. I don't know. Can't you not have true friends? Sure can. Yeah, it's a group dynamic. So you the of enemy is your mutual friend, and they will like one another. So it seems like the difference between ignored indifference, pity with mutual friends. Because you don't have to be enemies, but you do want enemies. So for two nobles to become friends, you do want to create another enemy that are in the equal stand. Yeah, and like for the slave mentality, I guess they would be enemy with everything else, but it's a lot more broad. They don't have friends, but they don't have choice to be make friends. Yeah, maybe, and yeah, they just become like a beta male, beta rat, yes, that just gather for the sake of gathering. Maybe, yeah, that's it. Um, by the way, yeah, I'm putting this coffee. I haven't drunk coffee. I drank only little, so that's just another um, measurement for this test that I don't. I'm trying to speak without this hyped up mental state of coffee and dopamine. Just to be clear. Just to be clear. But yeah, that was the Beyond Good and Evil. I liked it. I think it's a lot closer to. I really like what do you call it? The woman, John Gout, who is John Gout. the name of the book. I forgot the name of the book, but it was a really good book. I think it's like an actual drama laid out what's written in this Beyond Good and Evil. I like the capitalism twist, uh, like because it's more relatable. It's a business setting. I I heard from Jordan Peterson that he liked that just Dostoevsky version of uh, Nietzsche's description, explanation of this psychology. Dostoevsky was also dramatic, like brother Karamazov. But the part I'm not a big fan is like it's more like a psychology psychopath related. It's like a mother and strong resentment, strong hate towards other brothers and family, and I'm not. It's hard for me to relate it because I'm not that close to criminals, or I'm not geared. Maybe I come from good family, but I'm not geared towards like those criminal stories somehow. So I prefer the business side, capitalistic stories from the Russian author of whose name I forgot. Which is unfortunate. Let me just quickly read this. Well, these two from the last time. The Zen mind, beginner's mind. Okay. So communication without any intentional fancy way of adjusting yourself to express yourself as you are is the most important thing. Communication is very important in Zen practice because I cannot speak your language very well. I am always seeking some way of communicating with you. I think that this kind of effort will result in something very good. We say that if you do not understand your master's words, you are not his disciple. To understand your master's words or your master's language is to understand your master himself. And when you understand him, you find his language is not just ordinary language, but language in its wider sense. Through your master's language, you understand more than what his words actually say. When we say something, our subjective intention or situation is always involved. So there's no perfect word. Some distortion is always present in a statement, but nevertheless, through our master's statement, we have to understand objective fact itself, the ultimate fact. By ultimate fact, we do not mean something eternal or something constant. We mean things as they are in each moment. You may call it being or reality. 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 To understand reality as a direct experience is the reason we practice Zazen and the reason we study Buddhism. Through the study of Buddhism, you will understand your human nature, your intellectual faculty, and the truth present in your human activity. And you can take this human nature of yours into consideration when you seek to understand reality. But only by the actual practice of Zen can you experience reality directly and understand in their true sense in various statements made by your teacher or by Buddha. In a strict sense, it is not possible to speak about reality. Nevertheless, if you are a Zen student, you have to understand it directly through your master's words. Your master's direct statement may not be only in words. His behavior is likewise his way of expressing himself. In Zen, we put emphasis on demeanor or behavior. By behavior, we do not mean a particular way that you ought to behave, but rather the natural expression of yourself. We emphasize straightforwardness. You should be true of your feelings and to your mind, expressing yourself without any reservations. This helps the listener to understand more easily, to understand more easily. Oh, that word is hard. More easily. This helps the listener to understand more easily. I guess I'm bad with this L words. Not just L, but like tongue going outward. Easily, more easily. When you listen to someone, you should give up all your preconceived ideas and your subjective opinions. You should just listen to him. Just observe what his way is. We put very little emphasis on right and wrong or good and bad. We just see things we just see things as they are with him and accept them. This is how we communicate with each other. Usually when you listen to some statement, you hear it as a kind of echo of yourself. You are actually listening to your own opinion. If it agrees with your opinion, you may accept it, but if it does not, you will reject it or you may not even really hear it. That is one danger when you listen to someone. The other danger is to be caught by the statement. If you do not understand your master's statement, it is in its true sense. You will easily be caught by something which is involved in your subjective opinion, or by some particular way the statement is expressed. You will take what he says only as a statement without understanding the spirit behind the words. This kind of danger is always there. It is difficult to have good communication between parents and children because parents always have their own intentions. Their intentions are nearly always good, but the way they speak or the way they express themselves is often not so free. It is usually not too one sided and not realistic. We each have our own way of expressing themselves, and it is difficult to change that way according to the circumstances. If parents can manage to express themselves in various ways according to each situation, there will be no danger in the education of their children. This, however, is rather difficult. Even the Zen master has his own way. When Nishari Zenji scolded his disciples, he always said, "Go away." One of his students took him literally and left the temple, but the master did not mean to expel the student. It was just his way of expressing himself. Instead of saying, "Be careful," he said, "Go away." If your parents have this kind of habit, you will easily misunderstand them. This danger is always present in your everyday life. So, as a listener or a disciple, it is necessary to clear your mind of these various distortions. A mind full of preconceived ideas, subjective intentions, or habits is not open to things as they are. That is why we practice zazen to clear our mind of what is related to something else, to be quite natural to ourselves and also to follow what others say or do in the most appropriate way is quite difficult. If we try to adjust ourselves intentionally in some way, it is impossible to be natural. If you try to adjust yourself in a certain way, you will lose yourself. So without any intellectual fancy way of adjusting yourself, to express yourself freely as you are is the most important things to make yourself happy and to make others happy. You will acquire this kind of ability by practicing Zazen. Zen is not some fancy special art of living. Our teaching is just to live always in reality in its exact sense. To make our effort moment after moment is our way. In the exact sense, the only thing we actually can study in our life is that on which we are working in each moment. We cannot even study Buddha words. To study Buddha's words in their exact sense means to study them through some activity which you face moment after moment. So we should be concentrated with our full mind and body on what we do, and we should be faithful subjectively and objectively to ourselves, and especially to our feelings. Feelings. Even when you do not feel so well, it is better to express how you feel without any particular attachment or intention. So you may say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I do not feel well." That is enough. You should not say, "You made me so." That is too much. Or you may say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so angry with you." That there is no need to say that you are not angry when you are angry. When you are angry, you should just say, "I'm angry." That is enough. True communication depends upon our being straightforward with one another. Zen masters are very straightforward. If you do not understand the reality directly through your master's words, he may use his staff on you. What is it? He may say. Our way is very direct, but this is not actually Zen, you know. It is not our traditional way. But when we want to express it, we find it easier sometimes to express it in this way. But the best way to communicate may be just to sit without saying anything. And you will have the full meaning of Zen. If I use my staff on you until I lose myself or until you die, still it will not be enough. The best way is just to sit. Yeah, well, I really like that chapter. That's wisdom, man. It's so wise. How some people take it literally and take some stuff out of context. I used to have that too. I guess it's like a kind of like when you take it literal, when you take the advice literal, then that's a sign you're not really thinking. Like your brain stopped and not really actually trying to understand. It's like a bad comprehension. But it depends on how much time you have to. If you're in rush and you just take everything literal and not doing anything. Um, yeah, this like parent and children stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's wise. Like it's kind of like a psychotherapist, psychologist almost. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like we should study these religious texts a lot more in schools. I don't know what we spend like freaking 12 years in the early childhood was. It's not really like socializing uh, anything. Or math I find useful, like language too must be useful. Other than that, just like crap. What we study, like history and geography, like those are really useless. Yeah, like like why? Like knowing about Armenia, Georgia, it's like fun, but it's not useful at all. You know, like how the Canada became to be where it is now, just so useless now. Anyway, so that's that. So that's today, December 5th, second week of Saturday practice for speaking out loud, and hopefully it's getting better. But just been 1 week, so I need more practice, and hopefully like it will be up and down. Some days are better than the other, but it slowly get better. And yeah, see more weeks. Okay, bye.